Hi everyone and welcome to a weekly webinar. Today we're going to, I'm just going to take a little bit of a different process than we normally do. So I'm just going to do like a consultation that I would do with clients, and you're most welcome as always to pop in your questions. Any questions, in this case, preferably as we go, anything that I'm actually talking about throughout, and I'll make sure I try to get to as many questions as I can. So I have Julia and Nicole here with me today, and they're going to be helping to field through any questions that you might have. So please feel free to tap away at any time. Hello, Jenny. Whether it's about what I'm talking about or whether it's a different topic, something else related to the program, please feel free to chime in at any time. So some of you may have heard this, some of you may be actually, quite a way into the program, some of you may be doing gut health programs, and some of you may be on maintenance. So I understand that everybody's at a different place in the program, but I also find that even just going over some of the things that you may have already read or learned, sometimes just hearing them in a slightly different way or hearing them a little bit differently can really help you to absorb the knowledge much better. So sometimes there's just that kind of little light bulb moment where something starts to make sense for you that potentially hadn't done when you read it in the first place. So I'm just going to go through the process of the program for you and explain pretty much what's going on with your body and how it works. And then, why the program is designed the way that it is, because I think it's really important for you to understand it, particularly for ongoing maintenance of your results as well. So essentially, your body has two sources of fuel. We have glucose, which is essentially everything that we eat and drink. So whether it's a milky coffee or a meal or a piece of fruit or any kind of snack, we're basically filling up that glucose tank. And that's in your car. It's kind of like that main petrol tank. We stop at the petrol station and fill it up. In the other tank, we actually have our body fat. And so that's kind of like a reserve tank. So if that were in your car, you'd really only need to dip into that if your main petrol tank ran out of fuel. And then that's there as a reserve just in case you run out of fuel. But we've evolved as humans through feast and famine, and our body still exists the way it evolved, and it still functions the way that it evolved. But obviously our environment has changed significantly. There's no more famine, there's only feast, because we can eat as much as we like whenever we like, and that is just what we do. So there's very little opportunity for your body to ever really need to dip over into the reserve tank. And as a result of that, the reserve tank is always full. There's never any need to dip into fat for the purpose your body put it there. So the only reason that humans store fat is in case there's a famine and you need to draw on that as an excess source of fuel. And obviously there is no famine, so that never happens. So every time we eat or drink anything, we get a rise in our blood glucose, which is completely normal. And in response to that, our pancreas pumps out insulin, and insulin is a hormone, and its job is to grab hold of that glucose and put it somewhere. It's basically a storage hormone. And so this process happens all day long. Every time we consume anything, that's what's happening. And it's pushing into your liver. And so your liver has a capacity, and once it reaches capacity, it'll start turning that glucose into fat to go out for storage for later. And so this process continues to happen. Now, because we've evolved through feast and famine, at some stage that process is supposed to go into reverse, where insulin and glucose drop low enough that signal to your fat cells that they need to release some energy back into your bloodstream that you can use because you're low on fuel. That bit never happens. So really in this day and age, it's like going to Woolies and doing a big grocery shop, coming home, filling up the pantry, and 2 hours later you go and do it again. So we need to stop shopping and we need to use what we've got in the pantry. Okay, so that's the best analogy that I can give you. And so essentially that's what we're doing on the program. Now, where this system goes wrong is that your liver can only take so much. So, add on top of that refined foods, excess alcohol consumption, all of these things are being pushed into your liver. Well, your liver can't keep up with you. And so your liver will become like an overinflated balloon full of glucose and fat that it's trying to get out of there and put into storage. Now, when you're in that state, your body is still pushing glucose into your liver, but it's full, so it can't take any more. So in response to that, your body will start producing more and more and more insulin to try to force your liver to do its job. And that's called insulin resistance. While your insulin levels are high, it's pushing up your blood pressure, pushing up your cholesterol, causing inflammation, making you really hungry, and storing fat around your middle. And there is not a hope in hell that you're going to start shedding excess stored body fat while your insulin levels are high. So this is a process that many of us go through at the start of the program. In that first week or two, it's different for everyone for many different reasons, but this is what we're trying to do. It's just the foods are strict for 28 days because we're trying to elicit the smallest insulin response so that we allow your body to actually dip into that reserve tank as frequently and for as long as possible. And so whilst we do this, we're actually retraining your body to readily access stored fat. And when it's able to do that really efficiently, you feel quite calm. And most people are not hungry, like they don't feel hungry at all, which makes it very, very easy to make the right choices if you don't have that physiological pull to be craving and snacking all the time. Now, one of the things obviously that we test for in the blood test is insulin resistance, and we can turn that around pretty quickly. Same with most metabolic issues. So my goal for the program is actually not so much the fat loss, but it's to get your body and your metabolism functioning to its optimum and basically getting all of that working as it should. And in that process, you find that your body will actually, you'll start sleeping better. Your stress levels are reduced because your blood sugar is stable now. You're not on this roller coaster of blood sugar. The hunger levels have curbed. You can lose body fat fairly easily, and you're actually feeling a whole lot better. So when you're reliant on glucose, it's like throwing kindling on the fire. It flares up, it dies down, and then it's really urgent that you throw some more on. When you're actually able to burn stored fat, you find that it's like throwing a log on the fire. It burns really slow and really steady over a longer period of time. So that's where that kind of calm feeling and not feeling particularly hungry comes from. We got any questions while
we do. One from Rachel. Can a fatty liver be reversed to go back to normal, or will there always be some issues?
A fatty liver is exactly the process that we were talking about. Yes, it can be reversed depending on how bad your liver is functioning, as to how long that may take. I can't give you a time, but this way of eating is certainly the best way to give your liver a lovely holiday and to allow it to reverse everything that's been going on. Just to give you an idea of what your liver is capable of, so a normal liver in a healthy person weighs about 250 grams. A fatty liver in someone who is morbidly obese, right at the other end of the scale, could be up to 3 kilos. And that's just full, expanded full of fat and glucose that it's not coping with. So there's an enormous amount of pressure that your liver can be under. I mean, look, that's an extreme example. Gives you an idea of what can actually happen with your liver, and that can be reversed. A lot of people who have bariatric surgery to have gastric banding or any of those procedures will normally be asked to fast for a period of time before the surgery because they need to shrink their liver down and empty out all of that stored fat and glucose so that they can find the stomach to actually do the surgery. So we know that intermittent fasting has an enormous impact on liver function in a good way, and many other things. Was there any other questions? Otherwise,
yep. Weight loss remain consistent over the 4 weeks, or do some people plateau at some point?
Everybody's rate of fat loss is different, and it depends on so many factors. But if at any stage you feel like you're getting stuck, if you feel like it's slowing down, and I don't want you weighing yourself every day, that's not accurate, and we've talked about that before. So once a week is enough. But if you feel at any stage that it's starting to slow down, fill out your food diary on your menu. You have the ability to do that with as much detail, meal timing, quantities, everything, all your beverages. Fill out all of that and just ask us to have a look at it. Email support or ask us on the forum to have a look at it, and we can do so at any time. And usually it's just the smallest tweak. If you're not doing enough exercise, if you're not doing the recommended amount of exercise, that will normally slow you down by about the 3rd week. People tend to do what they can do and get away with. But often it's the third week things will start to get a bit sluggish if you're not doing the amount of exercise that you need to do. The reason that the strength training is super important is because it gives your muscles a big appetite to draw glucose out of your bloodstream, and that drops your insulin and glucose levels. So it really has a massive impact on this process and on the way your metabolism functions. That appetite is really only there for about 48 hours, and then you have to do it again. So 3 times a week is really important. Is there anything else, question-wise?
Yes. Can this program help thyroid issues?
Usually if you have an underactive thyroid, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to, that means that it could potentially be an autoimmune problem, but there's usually, by the time you recognise that you have a problem with your thyroid, it's normally not functioning as it should. In the very early stages of the thyroid malfunctioning, there are some things you may be able to do. There's, potentially iodine supplements and different things that you can try specific to thyroid. But essentially, if you're already medicated and taking thyroxine to increase your thyroid hormone, you're pretty much on that for life. That's going to bring your thyroid function back to normal. Now, I've had quite a few people ask me if this works for people who have an underactive thyroid. If you have an underactive thyroid, it means that you have less thyroid hormone circulating in your blood, so it can reduce your metabolic rate. However, if you're taking medication, which I'm assuming you would be, have a thyroid that's not working properly, your levels are normal. The reason for the medication is to push you back into the normal level. So you're no longer hypothyroid, you actually have a normal functioning level, and it shouldn't affect your metabolism at all. Okay. Is there anything else?
Yes. Is it normal to still be feeling some muscle weakness and fatigue, loss of stamina?
Depending on where you're at in the program. I mean, fatigue, muscle weakness is normally a result of your hydration and electrolytes. So on day 2 of your 28-day program, there's actually a forum post that links you to a blog on electrolytes, and that will explain a little bit more about it. So if you missed that, you can actually just go to the main blog section from the public area of the site on the homepage and click blogs and type in electrolytes, and it will come up as a blog as well. So magnesium has an enormous impact on your muscles. So what happens, and the reason people tend to get dehydrated when they start the program, even if you're drinking enough water, and I hear this a lot, but I'm drinking, I get you. What happens is when your insulin levels drop quite quickly, your kidneys will start to work overtime, which means you're actually urinating more frequently and more volume, which is going to put you at risk of dehydration, even if you are drinking enough. The other thing that goes with that is electrolytes: sodium, magnesium, potassium. Okay, so sodium, you can salt your food. You'll probably see us say that. So unless you have kidney disease or a reason not to have salt, we recommend that you have salt on your food. That's going to replace that electrolyte and stop you being so dehydrated, because salt hangs on to water. The other thing is potassium. Now, that's in all of your plant foods, but in particular avocado. So as long as you're having all your plant foods, everything is there for a reason. And magnesium you can take in supplement form at any time. It helps you to sleep, it helps muscle recovery, it stops any cramping, and it stops that heavy feeling that you can get into your muscles. But hydration, hydration, hydration. 2 to 3 litres as specified. So if you're not drinking much water to begin with, you'll probably aim for 2. If you're already doing 2, I'd aim for 3. So making sure you're getting within that range. That doesn't mean that 4 is better, because if you're drinking too much, you can actually dilute your electrolytes, which is actually worse than being dehydrated. Okay. Anything else, question-wise?
No.
All right. So the other thing that we work on, it's not just about your insulin, although that is one part of it, and getting your body to actually access stored fat. The other thing is, a lot of people are concerned about calories. We've been taught for years to focus on calories. So your body doesn't respond to a total sum of calories. It can't count. It basically, every calorie has a different metabolic impact. So out of protein, carbohydrates, and fats, the 3 macronutrients that we eat, fat has the highest calories, more than 2.5 times the calories of protein and carbs. Doesn't raise your insulin. So it basically has no metabolic impact. Protein does, carbs do, fat doesn't. So back in the 1970s, they told us all to stop eating fat because we're going to get fat and have a heart attack, based on really dodgy science that was corrupt. That's a whole other story. But in the process, if you look at the trend line of people getting fatter and the obesity trend worldwide and us cutting fat out of our diet, you'll see that they're correlated exactly. And the reason is that when you eat less fat, you eat more frequently because you're always hungry. And so when you eat more frequently, you're constantly pushing your insulin through the roof. So many of you have seen my squiggle line drawing. I'm going to do it again because I just want to explain it to you one more time so that you get it, because it's super important. So baseline for blood sugar and insulin. Above this line means that you're actually storing fat. Below this line means that you're in your reserve tank we talked about, burning your stored fat. Okay, so we want to be under the line as frequently and for as long as possible. If you're insulin resistant, you're already starting your day up here somewhere, but let's just say it's normal. So most people will have breakfast and a milky coffee and some lunch and a snack and some dinner and a couple of drinks and go to bed. Now, if you do it low calorie, it sort of looks like that. It doesn't really make much difference, okay? So what we do in the program is we choose foods that are going to elicit the smallest insulin response, and we have breakfast, lunch, dinner, stop. From dinner to breakfast is 12 hours fasting. Every 24 hours, you must have at least 12 hours of fasting. Between breakfast and lunch and dinner, we've got 5 hours minimum of fasting. Can be more, but not less. So if breakfast is between 6 and 8 and lunch is between 12 and 1 and dinner's between 5 and 7, depending on when it gets dark at night. In winter, it gets dark earlier. So then we've got this gap in between. Now, if you go past dark and you eat, your body assumes there's no more hunting and gathering. So your circadian rhythm, your 24-hour body clock, will actually start to diminish off your enzymes that are in your stomach, which means that when you dump dinner on it past dark, instead of this insulin response to the same meal eaten later, you get this insulin response, which comes down here. So you've missed all this time that you could be under the line in your own reserve tank, burning your own stored body fat, just by eating the perfect meal too late. Has a huge impact. The timing is so important. Now, I know how tricky it can be with work and everything as well, but we need to make the effort as much as we possibly can. So let's say you go past 8 a.m. and you haven't had breakfast. You've missed breakfast. There's only room in your day now for 2 meals with at least a 5-hour gap in between and not pushing it out too late in the evening. So you can either have lunch and dinner, or you can eat at 10 and 4. It doesn't matter, as long as there's at least 5 hours in between. You know, it could be at 9 and 5. It doesn't really matter, as long as you've got that gap in between and you're not eating too late. Now, obviously, if you have a job that's a bit hectic, 2 meals a day makes it a whole lot easier. You can do that anytime you like. I've been doing it for 30 years and I'm still here. So, you know, it's just a matter of doing what works for you. I'm up at, 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to eat at 5 o'clock in the morning. And it would be impossible to have a 12-hour overnight fast if I did that. So I basically eat mid-morning and then I usually have an early dinner. And that's the way it works. In summer, we have a bit more flexibility with the timing. But it's super important that you understand those basic rules forever, not just for the 28-day program, but even in maintenance, when we reintroduce a lot of different foods, you'll still find that those same rules apply, even though we've got more foods to eat and incorporate them in. So there's no snacking, again, ever. Any other questions? Nothing else?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
I just wanted to know, does that mean you change your dinner time with daylight savings and you...
Sure. You have more flexibility in summer with dinner time than you do in winter. So we have a 24-hour body clock, a circadian rhythm. And that circadian rhythm, the only thing we're really aware of is our sleep and wake cycle. We're all aware of that. And we know how bad we feel when we have jet lag. So, but throughout the day, it's set by evolution. And your body clock is doing things all day long. It's pumping out hormones. It's pushing up and down your blood pressure, your temperature. Things are happening all day in a rhythm. And we need to get back in sync with that rhythm as much as we can for our body to operate to its optimum. So the master clock for your body is in your brain, and that's set by light in your eyes, in your retina. So it makes sense that that changes with light and dark. And every cell in our body has a clock, and they really all need to be in sync with each other. So part of this program and getting you to eat And the routine that we're getting you into means that you start going to sleep when you're supposed to. You're not falling asleep in the middle of the day when you're not supposed to be. Your sleep quality is better. So all of these things are as a result of getting in sync with your circadian rhythm and eating at the right times and having that routine. So from a health perspective and from a fat loss perspective, it really does have a significant impact. Any more questions at this stage, or will I keep going?
In maintenance and beyond, is it recommended to limit to 1 meal a day if you want to lose weight?
No, I never recommend 1 meal a day. I think 2 meals a day is good. I think, occasionally if you have a sleep in on the weekend and you just don't feel hungry, you can do it. But I don't believe in optimum nutrition ongoing on 1 meal a day. And throughout the program, I think that might happen once in one of the stricter fasting weeks, once in the whole time the program. There's even a 24-hour fast that's in there is lunch to lunch, which means there's still 2 meals on each day. So I prefer that you have 2 meals. I think less is not better, more is not better. Everything is there and timed for a reason. Every single thing, every part of that meal, everything there's a reason for. So it's super important to stick to it exactly as it's shown. Any other questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay. So basically, we're also looking at your microbiome in the program. Now, we do have a specific gut rehab program. So what tends to happen is if you do the 28-day program and you do have some niggly gut issues, whether it's related to inflammation, IBS, constipation, autoimmune disease, whatever it happens to be, these all relate back to your gut. And so often just eating the way that we do on the 28-day metabolic weight loss program, people will actually see some great improvements in their symptoms that they've been having related to their gut, which is terrific, and they're normally maintained. However, there are some people who will still suffer from some gut issues that are potentially more severe gut issues that they've had. They may be improved, but still not quite right once they finish the program. So in that case, I'd suggest we need to look at a microbiome mapping where we actually do a stool sample that's sent from a kit sent from the lab, and we map all the bacteria that live in your gut. And then that way we can identify if there's a parasite or something else going on in your gut that shouldn't be, and address it directly. However, just making those corrections in the dysbiosis, the imbalance of bacteria living in your gut throughout the 28-day metabolic weight loss program can have a significant impact on your health, your sleep, your weight loss, inflammation, digestion, absorption of food, so many things. So there's a lot going on in this program. It's, I know that the catalyst for most people to do this is weight loss, but you'll probably find that, once you get right into it, by about the 3rd week, you'll start to notice that it's about a lot more than that. And the education of it, I think, is really important. So please make the most of everything that's available to you, particularly all the communication in your forum, because that is where I and the team communicate with you primarily, and you will miss a lot if you're not checking in on a regular basis. And even if you don't participate, there's a lot of questions being asked by others who are participating that will probably be helpful to you as well. Anything else, question-wise?
Yes, there's a couple. I've been prescribed anti-inflammatories for migraines. Is it okay to take these when I need them, and will it affect my gut health?
Look, anti-inflammatories can affect many things, mainly your stomach. So if you are taking them, I'm assuming your doctor has probably told you that you need to take them with food. So I wouldn't be taking them on an empty stomach because they can affect your stomach lining. If you've been prescribed a medicine, you need to take it. I'm hoping that once your overall health has improved and your overall inflammation has reduced, that potentially you may not need them as frequently or at all in the long run, which would be the ultimate. So while you need to take that medication that's been prescribed to you, hopefully if you're doing it on a basis as to when you need it, I'm hoping that you'll need it less frequently as you progress through the program and your metabolic health improves. Anything else?
Cherie, when taking sugar balance tablets, would taking sugar balance tablets be helpful with the sugar cravings? If so, is it okay to take them with the other vitamins as part of the morning routine?
When you say sugar balance tablets, I'm assuming you're referring to chromium or Resistex, which help to regulate your blood glucose. If you're referring to those, then they would be in your menu as part of your morning supplements. And they do really help to curb cravings and hunger. So that's why they're there, is to help you through that transition from burning glucose to burning body fat. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
And they're part of the registration supplement.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. So any other questions that we've got? Anything at all that you'd like to ask me?
Yeah, there's one more.
Yep.
If you're on antibiotics, will this affect the success of the program?
So antibiotics, the first thing you need to do is know that you can't take probiotics at the same time. So they work anti and pro, they work against each other. So the probiotic will stop your antibiotic from working and the antibiotic will stop your probiotic from working. So depending on how frequently you have to take your antibiotics, sometimes if it's 4 times a day, it's very hard to separate them. If you do take them both, you need to take them at least 4 hours away from each other. So if you're unable to fit your probiotic into your schedule of your antibiotic doses, then you'll just have to stop the probiotic whilst you take the antibiotic. Antibiotics can knock out your gut flora for at least 12 months. They'll completely throw it into chaos for at least 12 months. So the best thing you can do is to continue with a decent dose of a probiotic once you've finished that course of antibiotics. So they have a big impact. Whether they impact your weight loss, I can't answer that question. I'm assuming you have an infection of some sort, which is probably stopping you from moving around and being as active as you'd normally be. So all of those things combined can impact weight loss, but the most important thing is to restore your gut health once you've finished that. There's a product in the shop called Ultrabiotic 500 by Bioceuticals, and it's 7 days, 7 sachets. It's a really, really high strength probiotic, which is for restoring gut health, particularly post antibiotic use. So I'd suggest perhaps a course of those once you finish your antibiotics would be a good idea, but super important not to take them both at the same time.
Okay, and Cherie would like to know, should you need to take Panadol during the night? Will this break your fast?
Panadol won't, but I'd be more concerned about why you have to take it. So I'm big on trying to find the source of it rather than put a date on it. And for me, taking Panadol, if you're having to do that regularly, I'd want to know, are you dehydrated? Do you have a headache? Like why are you taking it? Because it shouldn't be something that you need on a regular basis. And if it is, then there's an issue that really needs to be identified and then addressed so that you don't need it, preferably.
Okay, and Karen would like to know, is there such a thing as doing too much exercise during the program?
There's such a thing as too much anything, definitely. So, we recommend 8 to 10,000 steps a day, and we recommend strength training 3 times a week. Now, that's something to aim for. Obviously, if you are already doing that, then that's great. If you are not even close to that, then I don't want you to kill yourself trying to get there. So as long as you're gradually increasing and improving what you're already doing, then that's great, and at the level that you're able to do. Doing more than that will probably cut into your recovery time. So for example, when you do strength training, you're getting tiny little micro tears in your muscle tissue, which need to be repaired. So after training, you're actually in a catabolic state where your body is breaking down. And then you need a rest time in between those workouts for your body to become anabolic, which means building it back up again. And if you're just constantly catabolic, then you're going to end up losing muscle tissue, which will decrease your metabolic rate and usually cause injury. So you can definitely do too much exercise. And if you're getting niggly joints, or you're feeling tired, or you're not getting any stronger, chances are you're doing too much. So more is definitely not better. What else have we got? I'm taking Lipitor. Should I stop it? I'm never ever one to tell you to stop taking medication. If you are taking medication and you've been directed to do so by your doctor, that's a question for your doctor, not for me. So, I never want you to change any medication that you're taking because of the program. It's a conversation to have with your doctor. That is a drug that helps to lower your cholesterol. So it is possible that the program will lower your cholesterol, particularly once you reach and maintain your goal weight. So once you get there, you can go and have that conversation with your doctor to ask what their advice is and if it's something that they may be able to help you with. Anything else?
Okay. So if someone was to increase their strength training by up to an hour, 4 times a week, does that mean the maintenance program will need to be adjusted for the amount of exercise they're doing?
There's no food adjustments necessary for exercise. No, I mean the food is based on your lean body weight and your body composition. It's got nothing to do with the exercise. So whatever exercise you're doing is a bonus that's helping to condition your muscles and build metabolically active tissue. But there's no adjustment needed. There's no, if you have extra protein, for example, it's not going to mean extra recovery. Any extra protein is just going to go into storage because your body can't use it. There's only so much that your body can use, and the amount that's calculated in your menu is specifically for you for that purpose. Anything else? Okay. I thought there was you've been answering that. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
If I want to change my goal to continue for more than 28 days, is that okay?
Okay, so Rosalind, with the 28-day program, once you get towards the end of that, from day 21 onwards, you'll see an option for either additional weeks, which is an extension of your current program. So if you feel like you want to stay strict and you have more weight to lose, you can add 1, 2, 3, or 4 additional weeks. If you otherwise, the option would be to go onto the maintenance program. And the maintenance program pretty much reintroduces most foods, and it helps you to do that and incorporate it into your everyday life. So you can still lose weight on the maintenance program, although it's a little bit slower. So if you want to keep the quicker weight loss going and you're prepared to be strict, you can add just 1 week at a time if you want. You don't have to choose all at the same time, and just see how you're tracking each week as to whether you add another one. But once the program has finished, then there's no more additional weeks. So you need to make your mind up before midnight on the Sunday when the program finishes. Anything else? Not at the moment. All right. So great questions today, guys. I hope it's been helpful in just sharing a little bit of light on how the program works and potentially giving you a little bit more overview on what you're doing and why you're doing it, which is really, really important as well. Next week, we're going to be chatting about food labels and ingredients and how to best read those. So I think that'll be a really interesting one too. We're going through broths and some of the common products just to help you with purchasing those as well. Okay, have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Bye.